Welcome back to my YouTube channel LC Coins World, where we explore the stories behind the coins that built our history. And today, we are diving deep into the journey of the 1984 Washington quarter dollar minted at the Denver Mint. This coin carries far more than just its face value. It represents a significant chapter in American currency evolution and offers insights into a generation that grew up watching the world change through the eyes of hard-earned money. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and since then, the design remained largely unchanged for decades, becoming one of the most recognizable coins in the hands of the American people. The obverse featured the bust of George Washington, sculpted by John Flanagan, and the reverse displayed the heraldic eagle, symbolizing strength, unity, and freedom, values that resonated deeply during the 20th century. By 1984, the United States was experiencing a time of rapid cultural and technological change. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. The economy was recovering from a deep recession, and pop culture was booming while inflation was stabilizing, and gas prices were more manageable. The public was beginning to see coins and cash in a new light. Many no longer viewed them simply as currency, but as collectibles and investments, especially among coin collectors who were beginning to identify errors, varieties, and mint-specific traits in mass-produced coins like the quarter. The Denver Mint marked these coins with a small D beneath the date on the obverse side. The 1984 D quarter was produced in large quantities, which makes its general circulation version common, but for collectors the interest lies in the condition, in the mint errors, and in rare die varieties. This coin was made of a copper-nickel clad composition with a total weight of 5.67 grams and a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and it continued the classic design until the introduction of the 50-state quarters program in 1999. Even though most 1984 D quarters are still worth face value in worn condition uncirculated, examples, especially those in Ms. 65 or higher grades, have steadily gained value and interest over the years. Moreover, error coins from this year, such as off-center, strikes, double dies, and clipped planchets, have fetched significant premiums in auctions and collector markets across the country. Some of the most sought-after versions include quarters with weak D mint marks and coins that exhibit die cracks or cud breaks that show the wear of aging equipment at the mint. The quarter itself represents more than 25 cents. It is a snapshot of American culture, resilience, and transition. The year 1984 was not just a date. It was an era defined by Cold War tensions, technological advancement, rising consumerism, and the beginning of the modern collector's movement in numismatics. The coin may have sat quietly in someone's pocket change jar or been used in a vending machine at a laundromat, but today, it stands as a historical piece carrying the legacy of its time. Collectors often seek coins from this era because they mark the last chapters of traditional coin design before the modern redesigns and commemoratives took over. The Washington quarter from 1984 is part of that final stretch before dramatic changes began appearing on the reverse, and the attention to mint quality started to decline slightly as mass production scaled up to meet the demands of the growing economy. As we explore this coin in more depth, you'll learn about the tools used to strike it, the pressure of the minting machines, the alloy composition, and how the Denver Mint played a critical role in maintaining coinage supply throughout the western United States. From die alignment issues to planchet preparation to the packaging process, each 1984 D Washington quarter passed through a journey that reflects precision, industrial design, and historical significance. So if you have one of these coins in your hand, take a closer look and ask yourself how many stories this small disc of metal could tell if it could speak. How many lives it touched? What kind of pockets it passed through? What transactions it was part of? And how its simple value of 25 cents could become a treasure for those who understand its place in our nation's financial and cultural history. In today's video, we will explore everything from mint production stats to hidden varieties from grading standards to auction values from historical context to collecting tips. So sit back, grab your magnifier, and join me as we uncover the full story of the 1984 The Washington Quarter Dollar, right here on Where History Lives in Every Coin. Today, we are diving deep into the rich and often misunderstood history of the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar coin, a piece of American coinage that represents much more than its face value and carries with it a legacy of equality, bold innovation, and cultural transition. The story of the Susan B. Anthony dollar begins in the heart of the 1970s, a time when America was evolving rapidly socially, politically, and economically. The nation had just come out of the Vietnam War, was navigating the tensions of the Cold War, and was beginning to address the need for greater representation and equality in all areas of public life. One of those areas was our currency. For over a century, nearly all United States coins had featured male presidents or iconic national symbols. But in 1979, that changed with the introduction of the first US coin to feature a real woman other than a fictional representation. The decision to honor Susan B. Anthony was more than a design choice, it was a statement. Susan B. Anthony was a pioneering advocate for women's suffrage, a tireless fighter for civil rights, and a symbol of strength, courage, and determination. Her inclusion on a United States coin was a historic moment, and the mint hoped that this new dollar would be the beginning of a new chapter in American numismatics. The 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar was minted in 3 primary locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with each mint producing coins for circulation and collector sets. The obverse of the coin features a right-facing portrait of Susan B. Anthony, designed by Frank Gasparo, who was the chief engraver of the US Mint at the time. Surrounding her portrait are 13 stars, the word liberty, the date, and the national motto, "In God We Trust." On the reverse, the coin showcases a beautifully detailed image of an eagle landing on the moon, clutching an olive branch, a direct tribute to the Apollo 11 mission and a carryover from the earlier Eisenhower dollar design. This symbolic imagery, combined with the powerful representation of Anthony herself, made the coin a compelling artistic and political statement. Despite its strong symbolism, the coin was met with mixed reviews from the public. Its size was similar to that of a quarter, which caused confusion in everyday transactions. Many Americans mistook the new dollar for 25 cents, leading to frustration and reluctance to use the coin widely. While it was heavily circulated in certain sectors such as the US Postal Service and transit systems, the average consumer often avoided using it. As a result, the coin never reached the level of popularity the mint had hoped for. Production of the Susan B. Anthony dollar continued in 1980 and 1981, but was suspended due to low demand. It would be briefly revived in 1999 to meet growing demand for dollar coins, before being replaced in 2000 by the Sacagawea golden dollar, which offered a visually distinct gold tone and smoother edge. Today, we are diving deep into the rich and often misunderstood history of the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar coin, a piece of American coinage that represents much more than its face value and carries with it a legacy of equality, bold innovation, and cultural transition. The story of the Susan B. Anthony dollar begins in the heart of the 1970s, a time when America was evolving rapidly socially, politically, and economically. The nation had just come out of the Vietnam War, was navigating the tensions of the Cold War, and was beginning to address the need for greater representation and equality in all areas of public life. One of those areas was our currency. For over a century, nearly all United States coins had featured male presidents or iconic national symbols. But in 1979, that changed with the introduction of the first US coin to feature a real woman other than a fictional representation. The decision to honor Susan B. Anthony was more than a design choice, it was a statement. Susan B. Anthony was a pioneering advocate for women's suffrage, a tireless fighter for civil rights, and a symbol of strength, courage, and determination. Her inclusion on a United States coin was a historic moment, and the mint hoped that this new dollar would be the beginning of a new chapter in American numismatics. The 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar was minted in 3 primary locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with each mint producing coins for circulation and collector sets. The obverse of the coin features a right-facing portrait of Susan B. Anthony, designed by Frank Gasparo, who was the chief engraver of the US Mint at the time. Surrounding her portrait are 13 stars, the word liberty, the date, and the national motto, "In God We Trust." On the reverse, the coin showcases a beautifully detailed image of an eagle landing on the moon, clutching an olive branch, a direct tribute to the Apollo 11 mission and a carryover from the earlier Eisenhower dollar design. This symbolic imagery combined with the powerful representation of Anthony herself made the coin a compelling artistic and political statement. Despite its strong symbolism, the coin was met with mixed reviews from the public. Its size was similar to that of a quarter, which caused confusion in everyday transactions. Many Americans mistook the new dollar for 25 cents, leading to frustration and reluctance to use the coin widely. While it was heavily circulated in certain sectors such as the US Postal Service and transit systems, the average consumer often avoided using it. As a result, the coin never reached the level of popularity the mint had hoped for. Production of the Susan B. Anthony dollar continued in 1980 and 1981, but was suspended due to low demand. It would be briefly revived in 1999 to meet growing demand for dollar coins, before being replaced in 2000 by the Sacagawea golden dollar, which offered a visually distinct gold tone and smoother edge. From a numismatic perspective, the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar has become a fascinating subject for collectors, especially when it comes to its varieties and mint mark distinctions. One of the most famous varieties is the 1979p wide rim, also known as the near-date variety, where the date is much closer to the rim of the coin than on standard strikes. This variety is sought after by collectors and can fetch higher premiums depending on condition. There are also proof versions of the coin struck at the San Francisco Mint with a high-quality mirror-like finish intended for collectors. Proof coins can be differentiated by their mint mark and generally display exceptional detail and clarity. Some of these proof coins, especially those with cameo or deep cameo designations from grading services, are highly valued on the secondary market. When evaluating the value of a 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar coin, several factors come into play, including condition, strike, mint mark, variety, and whether the coin has been professionally graded. Uncirculated and proof coins can be worth several dollars, while rare varieties in top condition can be worth significantly more. Collectors often look for full strikes, clean surfaces, and strong eye appeal when determining value. Beyond the numismatic value, the Susan B. Anthony dollar represents a pivotal moment in American coinage history. It is a coin that challenged tradition, honored a courageous American, and paved the way for more inclusive and diverse representations in our currency. While it may have fallen short in everyday usage, it succeeded in sparking conversation and change. As we look back on the legacy of this coin, we see not just a piece of metal but a mirror to the times it was born. From the movements that shaped a generation, from the push for gender equality to the celebration of scientific achievement and national pride, the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar is a reminder that our coins are more than currency. They are storytellers, each one holding a chapter of America's journey. So whether you are a collector, a historian, or simply someone who grew up with these coins in your change purse, join us as we continue to explore the stories behind the coins that shaped America here at LC Coins, where every coin tells a story. And today, we dive into the legacy, the production, and the enduring impact of the 1974 Lincoln penny coin that at first glance may appear simple and common, but when examined closely reveals a deep history, reflection of economic experimentation, and the shifting tides of American minting policy. The 1970 for Lincoln cent is more than just a piece of copper. It represents a pivotal moment in American numismatics, and for collectors and historians alike, this coin serves as a marker of both tradition and transformation. Let's begin with the background. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. It was the first regularly circulating US coin to feature a real person on its obverse, and it was designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials VD can be seen on the reverse of some of the early issues since 1909. The Lincoln penny has remained one of the most iconic and enduring coins in United States history, both in circulation and in the hearts of collectors. But by the early 1970s, the cost of producing copper cents was becoming a significant concern for the US Mint. Now, to understand the 1970 for Lincoln penny, we must look at what was happening during that period. In the early 1970s, inflation was on the rise, commodity prices were fluctuating, and copper prices in particular were increasing steadily. By 1973, the cost of producing a 1-cent coin was approaching, and in some cases exceeding, the face value of the coin. This was an economic red flag for the US Treasury and the Mint. Officials had to make a difficult decision. Should they continue using copper or look for alternative materials? The year 1974 became the focal point of this debate and action. In 1974, the US Mint began experimenting with different compositions for the penny. The goal was to reduce costs while maintaining the same size, weight, and general appearance of the coin. After extensive research and development, the Mint struck a number of test coins, using aluminum rather than the traditional 95% copper and 5% zinc alloy. The aluminum pennies of 1974 became one of the most intriguing and controversial experiments in US coinage history. Although nearly 1.5 million aluminum cents were struck, none were released into circulation as pushback from various interest groups, including pediatricians and vending machine companies, caused the Mint to reconsider. Pediatricians were concerned that if aluminum cents were swallowed, they would not show up clearly on X-rays, making it difficult to detect or remove if a child swallowed one. Meanwhile, vending machine manufacturers worried that their machines would not be able to properly recognize or reject the new composition, causing malfunctions and business losses. As a result of this opposition, the Mint ordered the aluminum cents to be destroyed, and only a few are known to survive today, held secretly and controversially in private collections or at the Smithsonian. The standard 1974 Lincoln cents that entered circulation were struck using the same bronze alloy that had been used for decades. This alloy was composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. These coins were produced at all three major mints of the time: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and each mint produced a substantial number of coins. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 4 billion coins without a mint mark. The Denver Mint produced over 4 billion coins with the D mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint produced nearly 412 million coins, most of which were intended for collector-proof sets. From a design perspective, the 1974 Lincoln cent remained consistent with previous issues, featuring the familiar right-facing profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse with the inscription, "In God We Trust," above liberty to the left and the date to the right. Beneath the date, the D or S mint mark would be found if the coin was struck in Denver or San Francisco, respectively. The reverse featured the Lincoln Memorial, a design first introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design, by Frank Gasparo, would remain in use until 2008. Now, let's discuss the collectability of the 1974 Lincoln penny. While billions of these coins were produced, making most of them relatively common, there are still factors that make certain examples more desirable to collectors. The most important of these factors include mint state condition, errors, and varieties, and any historical significance tied to experimental pieces. For instance, any 1974 aluminum cent, even though officially never released into circulation, is considered incredibly rare, and if one ever surfaces in public, it becomes the focus of intense legal and numismatic debate, as the US Mint considers them government property. Some 1974 cents have been found with doubling in the lettering or the date, particularly from the Denver Mint. While these are relatively rare, any 1974 double die variety tends to command a strong premium among collectors, especially if the coin is in mint state or higher condition. For collectors focusing on condition, full red and circulated coins, especially those graded Ms. 65 or higher by third-party grading companies like PCGs or NGC, are highly desirable, as coins toned red retain their original luster and show little to no signs of oxidation or circulation, and these visually appealing coins often sell for much higher than face value, even among common date coins. Proof versions of the 1974 cent were struck at the San Francisco Mint and intended for collectors. Proof coins are made using specially polished dies and planchets and display a mirror-like background with frosted devices. These proof coins are collected for their beauty and craftsmanship, and those in pristine condition, especially PR70 examples, can be quite valuable within collector circles. The economic significance of the 1974 cent is also worth mentioning, as this was the last year before the mint moved fully away from the traditional bronze alloy. Starting in mid-1982, the US Mint transitioned to a primarily zinc-based composition with only a thin copper plating. The shift was driven by the same economic pressures that had prompted the aluminum experiment in the 70s, but by 1982 the technology and economic environment had changed enough to allow the mint to move forward with a new composition. So while the 1974 Lincoln penny may not look much different from the pennies that came before or after, it stands at a crossroads in its coinage history. It is the coin of a moment when America stood on the edge of change, when inflation, uncertainty, and industrial feedback shaped the physical currency in our hands. In closing, the 1974 Lincoln penny remains a cornerstone in the history of American coinage for its role in one of the most ambitious compositional experiments ever attempted by the US Mint, for the sheer volume of coins produced and circulated, for the collectors who appreciate every detail from mint mark to metal content, and for the everyday Americans who unknowingly carried a piece of that economic story in their pocket. This coin continues to live on, not just in jars, drawers, and collections, but in the broader narrative of how a nation manages its economy, its traditions, and its sense of value. Stay tuned here on LC Coins as we continue to explore the stories behind the coins, the histories they hold, and the people who collect them, because behind every coin there is a story, and we are here to tell it. Welcome back to LC Coins World. Today, we're taking a deep dive into one of the most iconic and patriotic coins in American numismatic history, the 1776 to 1976 bicentennial Eisenhower $1 silver coin, a bold and powerful symbol of freedom, history, and American pride. This coin was minted to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and it holds a unique place in the hearts of collectors and history lovers across the country. This episode will explore the rich origins of the Eisenhower dollar series, the design decisions that led to the creation of the special bicentennial version, the political, cultural, and economic context of 1972's America, and how this coin became both a circulating commemorative and a treasured collectible. We'll begin with the story of the Eisenhower dollar itself. Introduced in 1971, following the death of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States and Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces in World War II. This coin was the first $1 coin produced for circulation since the peace dollar was discontinued in 1935. The Eisenhower dollar was larger than most coins used at the time, struck in both copper, nickel, and silver clad varieties. It carried a powerful presence in the hand and in American pockets. But the most unique addition came in 1975. In 1976, when the United States Mint released the special bicentennial design to honor 200 years of American independence. Rather than using the typical date, the coins featured a dual date 1776 to 1976 to mark the nation's founding and its enduring legacy. The obverse still carried Frank Gasparo's iconic portrait of Dwight D. Eisenhower, but the reverse was replaced with a powerful new image designed by Dennis R. Williams featuring the Liberty Bell superimposed on the moon, an intentional combination symbolizing both America's historic past and its future in space exploration, a nod to Eisenhower's role in launching NASA and the country's role in the space race. Now the 1776 to 1976 Eisenhower dollar came in several versions, including circulation strikes and special collector editions. There were coins struck in copper nickel for everyday use, and 40% silver versions released in special collector sets by the United States Mint. These silver-clad versions are highly sought after today for both their silver content and historical significance. In addition to being a patriotic piece of metal, they serve as tangible reminders of America's bicentennial celebration, which included parades, music, TV specials, and even a nationwide sense of unity and reflection. As we continue, we'll explore the exact mintage numbers of each type, the differences between business strike and proof coins, the San Francisco mint marks, and how to spot rare varieties that have increased in value over the years. We'll also walk through how these coins were packaged, marketed, and sold by the U.S. Mint, especially the 3-coin silver. Walk through how these coins were packaged, marketed, and sold by the U.S. Mint, especially the 3-coin silver and circulated sets and blue packs that remain favorites among collectors today. We'll dive into the economic and cultural atmosphere of 1976, a year marked by both pride and uncertainty. America was recovering from the Watergate scandal, facing rising inflation and economic challenges, but at the same time, the bicentennial year brought people together in celebration of American resilience and ideals. And the Eisenhower bicentennial dollar was a major part of that story, distributed through banks and mint programs and placed into the hands of millions of Americans as a piece of celebratory currency. You'll learn the stories of the designers behind the coin and how a then 22-year-old art student, Dennis R. Williams, won a national competition to design the reverse. His powerful imagery of the Liberty Bell and moon stood out, not just as a patriotic tribute, but also a symbol of the space, age, optimism, and national pride of the time. Throughout this 2-hour journey, we'll also cover how to identify authentic silver-clad Eisenhower bicentennial dollars from their copper-nickel counterparts, how to grade their condition using professional standards, how to evaluate their current market value, and what to watch out for in terms of fakes or altered coins that are sometimes seen in online sales. We'll also look at how these coins have performed over time in terms of investment, which coins are the most valuable today, how error coins such as doubled dies or off-center strikes have added to collector demand, and where these coins stand in the greater landscape of U.S. commemorative coinage. So stay tuned as we travel through the legacy of liberty, the evolution of U.S. coinage, and the patriotic power of the 1776 to 1976 Eisenhower $1 coin. This is more than just a silver disc. It's a piece of American pride and living history, and you're about to discover why it deserves a special place in your collection and in our collective memory, where history is held in the palm of your hand, and every coin tells a powerful story. Today, we journey deep into the heart of American numismatics as we explore the rich and remarkable history of the 1945 wheat Lincoln penny, a small copper coin that carries with it the weight of an era, a nation in transition, and the legacy of one of the most iconic figures in American history, Abraham Lincoln. The year was 1945. and the world was at a turning point. The Second World War was drawing to a close. Europe was in ruins, the Pacific was ablaze, and at home in the United States, Americans were rationing goods, conserving metals, working in war industries, and supporting a massive military effort abroad. In the midst of all this, the US Mint was hard at work producing the coins that would continue to drive the economy during wartime and beyond. And among those coins was the humble yet historically significant 1945 Lincoln wheat cent, struck primarily at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. The 1945 Lincoln cent remained true to the design introduced in 1909 by Victor David Brenner, profile of President Lincoln on the obverse, and two wheat stalks curving around the words 1 cent on the reverse. The coin itself measured 19 millimeters in diameter, composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It weighed 3.11 grams and served not only as a functional piece of currency, but also as a tribute to Lincoln's enduring legacy. What makes the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny especially compelling is its context. At the time, the United States was still producing coins using traditional copper alloy, but just 2 years prior, in 1943, the mint had experimented with zinc-coated steel to conserve copper for the war. This resulted in a short-lived and controversial steel penny that was poorly received by the public due to its tendency to rust and its similarity to dimes in appearance. By 1944, the mint returned to copper using recycled shell casings from the battlefields, which made the 1944 and 1945 issues particularly symbolic. They were coins born from war, both in spirit and in substance. Many collectors today refer to these cents as shell case cents, and this gives the 1945 penny not only monetary value, but emotional and historical significance. Millions of these coins were produced, making them common in general terms, but condition, rarity, errors, and provenance can dramatically increase their value. For example, 1945 Lincoln cents in pristine mint state, especially with full original luster and strong strikes, can fetch significantly higher prices at auction. Ms. 65 and above examples are always in demand and often find homes in top-tier collections. Collectors should also be aware of striking varieties and errors that emerge during this production year, including off-center strikes, double die obverses, and repunched mint marks. These errors are not just numismatic curiosities. They are treasured finds that offer a deeper glimpse into the minting process and the human hands behind them.